Hello, and welcome to our video tutorial on creating PEM files for iOS push notifications. This is the most difficult step in the process of getting your app set up for the Apple push notification service, and is the cause of most of the issues that we've seen when people are having trouble getting push notifications to work with their apps. So we're going to explain it step by step and share some of the tips, tricks, and best practices that we've learned in more than 3 years of doing this. So please follow along carefully, and soon you too will be an expert at making PEM files. Everything we're covering in this video is also on our support site, which you can find at pushio.zendesk.com under the article Generating a PEM File for iOS. And so here we go. First things first, to configure push notifications, you've got to have an app. You don't have to have any of the code written yet, but you do need to know what the bundle identifier for your app is going to be. If you've done iOS apps already, the important thing to note here is that you cannot use a wildcard bundle ID. That's the kind with an asterisk. You have to have a specific bundle ID for this app. In our case, we're making an app called Birdwatching, so our bundle ID is going to be com.pushio.birdwatching. Now that we know the exact bundle ID we're going to use, then we're ready to log into the provisioning portal on the Apple developer website and get started with the PEM process. So, from the main screen of the provisioning portal, or the developer site, you'll see a link over here on the side, iOS Provisioning Portal. That's where we want to go. And then you'll see this link back on the left side for App IDs. That's where we want to go next. And then there's this button here, New App ID, over here on the right-hand side. Click on New App ID, and then we have the ability to enter a brief plain text description. I'll enter bird watching, and then the bundle identifier for the app. In this case, com.pushio.birdwatching. And then click submit. And when you do that, you're taken back to the list of all the app IDs. Now we've got a whole bunch of them on our site here, so I'm going to do a quick search to find bird watching. And then what you'll see here is that there are a whole variety of services that you can configure for your app, and then a link to configure those services. So let's click on the configure link. First one that pops up at the top here is Enable for Apple Push Notification Service. So go ahead and check that. And then you'll see that that enables two additional items below that. The two options here are Development Push SSL Certificate and Production Push SSL Certificate. Since the PushIO service is already in production, we only need to make a Production Push SSL Certificate. And this is a really important detail, so let me reiterate that. We only need to make a Production Push SSL certificate, and if you upload a development certificate to the PushIO service, it won't work. So that may seem odd to you since you're still in development on your app, but in this case, development refers to developing a push server, not your app. So one more time, you only need to create a Production Push SSL cert, and that's the only thing you should upload to PushIO. If you upload a development cert, it won't work. All right, with that caveat out of the way, let's go to the next step here, which is to click on this Configure button, which then brings up an overlay of on-screen instructions that detail the next few steps. So let's walk through those. Now, at this point, as these on-screen instructions explain, we need to switch to keychain access to generate what's called a certificate signing request. So here's what to do. Switch to keychain access, and to do that, one easy way is just to click up here in Spotlight and type keychain. And when that pops up, you can then hit return, and that will open Keychain Access. You can also navigate to your application's utilities folder, but that's just a little bit more work, so we'll take this option. All right, now over in Keychain Access, up here in the Keychain Access menu, there is an option named Certificate Assistant, which has a hierarchical pop-out menu, and that side menu there includes this option, Request a Certificate from a Certificate Authority. And that's what we want. One tip here, note the ellipses, those three dots at the end of this menu option. If instead of the three dots you see something like request a certificate from a certificate authority with such and such a name, then you'll want to go back to the main keychain access window and make sure you deselect anything in that main list. This just makes sure that we create a new private key for our push certificate, which is what we want, especially if you're building an app for somebody else or if you've got a lot of apps. Okay, so back to this option here, request a certificate from a certificate authority with the three dots. This is now going to bring up another window, the Certificate Assistant, and we need to enter some of the certificate information here. So the first field is for an email address, and while you don't necessarily need to enter your personal email, you should enter a valid email address that relates to the certificate. Again, if you're developing an app for somebody else, you might want to enter their email address there. So I'll enter push.io, our Gmail address. Now, the next field here is the common name field, and this is just some plain text to help describe your certificate. Now, here's a really good best practice. You want to enter a very descriptive phrase here because this is what's going to be used to name the private key that's about to be created in your keychain. So we recommend using the name of the app in this field along with making it clear that it's a production push SSL cert. So for our bird watching app, we might enter push.io bird watching production push SSL cert. The next options here include choosing Save to Disk on this screen, and we want to choose Save to Disk. And that way we also don't have to enter the certificate authority's email address. We then click Continue, and now it's asking us where we want to save this. So a couple things here. Once we actually get this cert generated, we won't really need this file anymore. But one thing, we recommend that you probably want to keep all these files together, and one easy way to do that is to use the bundle ID. So I'm going to go back to com.pushio birdwatching.csr for certificate signing request. And I'm going to save it on the desktop just so that these are easy to find. A couple moments later, after this is done, we have actually created that request on disk. So now that we've got that, we go back over here to the developer portal, and we have this pop-up overlay where we hit Continue. And now what it's asking us for is that CSR file that we just created. So we'll choose the file, go to the desktop, and select that CSR. Now we hit Generate. Now this can take a moment or two, but when it's done, we'll see a big green check mark, and we'll be ready to hit Continue. Well, it says, there we go. So now we hit Continue, and we have the option now to download this new certificate that was generated by Apple, and that is what's required to authenticate with the Apple push notification servers. So I hit Download, and that'll be added to my downloads. So over here, you'll note, I'm going to go ahead and open that in the Finder, and you'll note that the file here is called APS production.sir. Now, once again, we recommend as a best practice to immediately rename this file, and it should be renamed to something that you're going to recognize later. Again, best way to do that is just use the bundle ID. So com.pushio.birdwatching, and I just prepend that to the beginning, leaving APS production.sir at the end there, which also helps us keep track of the fact that this is for APNS production. Now remember, we're doing production only. If it's called APNS development.sir, then you made a development certificate, and you got to go back and start over on the provisioning portal, repeating the steps, but making sure that you are creating a production certificate. All right, still with us? Great, because we are almost done now. Okay, so the next step is to double-click this certificate file, which is then going to take us over to Keychain Access and import this new certificate. And we'll say yes. All right, so now your keychain is probably more like my regular keychain, which is full of all sorts of stuff. So a good thing to do is click over here on Certificates, and then you will see your certificate as well as the bundle ID, com.pushio.birdwatching. Now, one thing here is that we're going to be exporting this, and we want to make sure we export it along with the private key. So I dink open this disclosure triangle and see the private key there. And now here's one of the things that we were talking about earlier. This is why we wanted to enter that full name in the common name field, push.io birdwatching production push SSL cert, because that is what the private key gets named. So now with this certificate selected, note that it's the certificate, not the key that's selected, we can either go up here to the File menu and do Export Items, or you can Control-click on here, and you'll have the option of exporting it. And I didn't see export there, so I'm going to do export from the File menu. And now it brings up, again, the option to save this somewhere. I'm going to put it on the desktop. And the one important detail here is that you'll note that it's going to generate this PIE P12 file, the .p12 file. And again, the best practice here is to use a recognizable name. Once again, we'll use the bundle identifier and save that, and that's going to save it on the desktop. Okay, now a couple things happen here. When we hit save, we're presented with this dialog where we're asked to enter a password that would protect the exported data. Now, that is, this would be a new password that you'd be applying to protect the file that's exported. And while this is definitely generally a good security step that you'd want normally, we're not going to use it in this case because it makes it a little more difficult to use your certificate on our server. So just hit OK here without entering a password. Now, the next dialog that comes up is asking for our standard login password, which basically is asking us to verify that we want to allow or authorize this certificate to be exported from the keychain. So I'll just enter my standard login password for this user, hit allow, and you'll note a moment later, there's our P12 file on the desktop that we just created. All right, now after all of that, finally, we're going to actually make the PEM, which we do by converting this P12 that we just exported. We have an automator action that you can use, which you will find on that article on the support site under the Generating a PEM File article all the way at the bottom. Let's scroll all the way down, and you'll see push.io PEMmaker app.zip. I go ahead and click on that. That downloads it over here into downloads. And once again, I'm going to open that in the Finder. Now, there's no user interface for this. All you have to do is drag the P12 file on there. So I drag that like this right onto that application. We did download this from the internet, and that's okay. We hit go, and moments later, presto, voila, there is the PEM file that we are ready to upload to the push.io web dashboard when you create a platform. Add platform and upload PEM. And this is where we would go grab that PEM. And that's all you have to do to create the PEM file. Now, since the Automator script, a lot of people want to know, like, what does the Automator app do? I'd like to show you, as a bonus, under the hood, what's going on there. So, all the Automator action or app is doing there is running a shell script. And so I want to quickly show you that shell script in the terminal. So we bring up the terminal. And then we put all these files on the desktop, so what we want to do is navigate to the desktop, and we do that by typing cd for change directory, tilde for my home, and then capital D desktop. And now we're in the desktop folder. So next, we're going to actually run the OpenSSL command, which is under the hood of that Automator app. And so here's how we do that. Type in OpenSSL space PKCS12 space, -n, space, and then the name of the source file. And I like to use completion, so I'm going to type com.push.io. And one thing that happens here when I hit tab to do the completion, but one thing that happens is we've got a few of these files on the desktop now, so I just need to choose the P12 extension, so I just type that in there. Then space, then out, space, and then the name of the file that we want to write out. So in this case, com.push.io. Again, I can use completion. And now we don't have a PEM for that one, or in theory we didn't have a PEM for that one, so I would type PEM space. And then we've got to type two more things, -nodes space and -cl certs. And this packages all the stuff that we need into that PEM file. When I hit return, it's asking for an import password. And the important detail here is that since we didn't apply a password earlier, we don't have a password here now, so we just hit return. We should get Mac verified OK. And then on the desktop, we've got the PEM file, again, that we are ready to upload to push.io. And that's it. Whether you use the command line option or the Automator app, this is the PEM file ready to be uploaded, and that's what you have to do. I hope this video has helped you get through all the steps and successfully create your PEM file as well. If not, don't hesitate to reach out to us through the support site or by sending email to support@push.io. And now we are ready. Thank you very much for watching.